Hey everyone, it's Andrew, and we are back for part 6 of the start to finish pendant design tutorial. Now in this video we're going to be covering the polishing of the pendant that we have created in the first 5 parts. Now I like to do a progression of a few different things when I polish, and the first thing I need to start off with is kind of looking through and seeing if there's any tool marks or anything I really need to work out. To begin our polishing sequence, we're going to start off with the Silicone Pumice Wheels. We're going to start with the 80 grit to work out the hard tool marks. And then we're going to progress up to the 400 grit, and then to the pumice grit, and so on and so forth. We're also going to be using a progression of the Silicone Bristle discs, and a same progression as well, 80 grit, and then progressing up through the grits. And to get started, we're going to kind of work out some of the tool marks on the back. You might be able to see my sterling and argentium silver stamp on the back that I've added there. I have to be really careful not to grind this down too far so I don't remove those numbers, but I do want to even it out just a little bit. And what else I like to do is curve down the corners of the square wire and the half round just to make sure everything is kind of rounded out and smoothed out, so that way when it sits against the skin it's very flat and smooth and doesn't cause any scratches or anything like that. Now I'll take this on the thicker square wires, but the previous 80 grit and then also this 400 grit I will not use on the 30 gauge round. You can use it on that very, very lightly, but I really don't like using it on the 30 gauge because the 30 gauge is so thin that these more coarse grits end up tearing through the 30 gauge because they do end up removing a little bit of material. You might see some of the silver dust flying around in the camera. So I just mainly use these more coarse grits for finishing off things like on the frame there or on the back end to remove the tool marks. Once I've gone through all of my pumice wheels up to the 1 micron, I will then go back to the pumice grit of the silicone bristle discs and start to go over everything with that. This one is a good option to start, just kind of polishing things up and getting them to be really, really shiny. It's always a good practice to polish your frames before you start construction, and it's also a good practice to polish your backs of your pendants as well. This is something that some artists either don't feel the need to do or they don't feel it's an appropriate thing, but keeping your whole piece shiny is what you want to be doing. Making a slight adjustment on the stone setting there. We're going to continue polishing around on the front end, making sure we get all of those details really nice and shiny because that square wire can really shimmer if you get it nice and polished up. Now we're progressing on to the 1 micron silicone bristle disc. And I'm going to link a few different sets of these pumice wheels and the bristle discs in the descriptions. I definitely suggest that you check them all out and get as many that you can. And look at the shine on that. That's why I like to do this progression. You've really got to work out all those tool marks, starting with the more coarse grits, then working up to these higher grits. And the result's very much worth putting in the time to polish out every aspect that you can. Now this 1 micron is a little safe for the stones, so you don't want to hit the stones going with a too fast of an RPM, but you can use the 1 micron and only the 1 micron over the stones briefly. I really don't like to, and I try to avoid hitting stone settings as often as I can. But you are going to want to avoid hitting the stones with any of the other polishing discs, because they're just going to be too high of a grit or too coarse of a grit, and they will scratch your stones. Now we're going to oxidize the pendant. I prefer to use the Midas liver of sulfur gel versus the hard crystallized sulfur mixture. And I used to use a stainless steel container to do the oxidizations, but now I've switched over to a glass container. It's just a little bit easier for cleanup and everything as well, and for storage of the liver of sulfur until I'm ready to dispose of it. Now the first thing we're going to do is put a few drops of that mixture in the container. You're not going to need a lot, just a few drops. And I've got my water boiling in the back. Go ahead and secure your pendant onto the chopstick, either with floss, string, or by putting the chopstick through the bail if your bail is large enough. Go ahead and add some boiling hot water in there. Since this is not a soft stone, I am going to use boiling water. Sometimes I'll do some not boiling water, just kind of warmer water to do a slower oxidization process, but we're going to go ahead and do a quick one with this pendant. The hotter the water, the quicker the oxidization process. With things like malachite or turquoise, super hot water can kind of remove that coating that's on the top of a cab from the polishing process, and it can damage the stone. But with labradorite and the faceted and tourmaline materials that we have, we don't have to worry about it. That went ahead and darkened that up really quick. Now we're ready to polish it up and bring out those highlights. Now we're going to be using a progression of some larger 1 micron green bristle discs that I ordered from Rio a long time ago. They unfortunately don't offer these anymore on the website, but you can go ahead and use one of the 6 micron bristle discs to remove this top layer of the oxidized silver very quickly, and it won't, do too much of a scratching, so you don't have to do too much of a repolish. I'm also going to be using the blue sunshine cloths. You can also use the yellow sunshine cloths as well to help remove some of the darker oxidized spots. But we're going to go ahead and start off with that larger 1 micron bristle disc. And you can see it removing the top layer of the oxidized silver. And this just, for me, is the quickest way to remove this this top layer of the oxidized part of the silver. I'm going to make sure we get all the dark edges there without hitting the stones. I just really don't like hitting the stones with it too much. The 1 micron is stone safe, but I just, I don't know. I feel like I've noticed a little bit of a dulling of a stone if I've hit it going with too quick of an RPM. Gonna make a little minor adjustment there. I noticed something a little scratchy. That's why it's always really good to be handling this piece a lot during your polishing process, because you might discover some untucked wires that you weren't quite aware of at first. And again, make sure you remove the dark oxidization from the back as well. And now moving on to those stones, I'm going to take the sunshine cloth, and this blue one works very well for removing oxidized layers if you hit it enough times. The yellow is also a very good option, just I wouldn't go with the yellow over stones too terribly much. The sunshine cloths, not the pink abrasive side, but for the yellow and blue, are generally stone safe. can see those stones really shine. I guess I should explain the glove too. So I use these cotton gloves to, you can see the dark parts of the fingertips, and I use them to keep my fingers clean while I'm polishing. It just, you know, it kind of helps me not have to wash my hands so profusely when I'm done doing the polishing work. Now we're going to switch over to the 1 micron bristle disc to finish this up, the normal smaller 3/4 of an inch size one that we use. This is going to finalize our polish for us and make everything look really nice. I generally finish up all my pieces with this 1 micron bristle disc. It seems to give the best finish out of all of the polishing elements I've used. I've still yet to really dive into the Rouge compound. I need to mess around with it some more and, you know, get a firm grasp on how to utilize it, so that way I can teach all of you how to utilize it as well. Being very careful in getting those inner parts nice and polished up as well. Polishing up the sides and making sure we get the back end very nice and shiny as well. I really like how the 13 gauge half round wire looks after it's nice and polished up. That, the rectangular wire, and the square wire are some of the shinier wires that I've discovered. They seem to have a really, really nice finish when polished up. The general round wire is pretty good as well, but these ones seem to have just, as you can see the shimmer there, they just really nice finish to them once you've got them all polished up. And look at the shine on that. It's pretty great. I like it. I hope you guys enjoyed this process as well. It's been quite a journey making these mini-series for you. I'm also going to be doing another mini-series, but it's going to be on a more complex pendant, and it's probably going to be like a symmetrical design as well. And so let me know in the comments what you guys want to see in the next mini-series, and let me know what you thought of this one, and look for the giveaway for this pendant on social media. Alright, thanks guys!